Alright guys, I know that you might get mad at me for making this video, but don't call me Sheep Rampage when I'll be talking about the history Hello Neighbor, from how it went from a good to a hated game. And I bet some people are starving for more history of Hello Neighbor, but I decided to discontinue the series, and instead talk about all of them in one video. So let's get started. Now Hello Neighbor was created by a Russian company called Dynamic Pixels, which was then later changed to Eerie Guest Studios. But back in 2014, there was an all-white landscape and layout of an animation from Blender. There was a concept to show off what the game was gonna be like. Then in 2015, there was an early prototype built with music. The game then ends with Russian text translating to Pretty Boy. Then an official announcement trailer from TinyBuild was shown, giving us the final version of the prototype built as a trailer only. The trailer ends with the player being buried alive. Afterwards, a man was screaming hello. This was possibly the player. Then on September 29, 2016, the pre-alpha was out and the game gained popularity. YouTubers like Markiplier and MatPat were making videos playing the game. The game ends with nothing in the blocked-off room because the game was just for testing purposes. Then on October 26, Alpha 1 released and the game was kind of like the pre-alpha with less bugs. The game ended with player about to enter the basement before being stopped by the neighbor and being buried alive. November 22nd came around and Alpha 2 launched. To this day, this version was said to be the best version. The build also seems slightly more different with a cartoony art style. The game ended off when the player reached the basement. Suddenly a door was cracked open, but then the game ends saying HelloNeighborGame.com. There was also a test map called Neighbor 3 or Neighbor_3, with an empty landscape, but a gigantic house. The house was dark inside and you still can get hunted by the neighbor, even with a floating neighbor that's sleeping. And I guess that this was probably a teaser for the next alpha. Then exactly a month later, Alpha 3 was released. And I guess it's safe to say that this build started the decline. In this build, it's dark all the time. Kind of like in the last alpha where it was daylight all the time. The neighbor's house was incredibly huge instead of being a small but manageable house. And I guess we should talk about the problems with this build. It was too dark, the puzzles were a bit harder, and the AI was not the best kind of AI. The neighbor was way too fast and some people managed to rage quit, probably because of some Parker. This house made its way from this build to Act 3 in the final version. Then months passed since then and on May 4th, 2017, the final alpha came out. The art style was fully cartoony in this build and continued being like that when the full game launched. Then they would release 3 betas, which were basically the same as Alpha 4. In Alpha 4, the game ends with the player, Nicky Roth, leaving his apartment. Beta 3 was more different with the basement being a lot different, and the ending with a giant neighbor. Then the developers would release an E3 trailer for the game releasing on August 29th, but was later delayed to December 8th. The reason the game was delayed was because there wasn't enough time put into quality assurance. Then the game finally launched, but failed. In this game, there were 4 acts. The first one being a slightly modified Alpha 2 house, the second is trying to escape the house, which was being built larger, the third being, like I said before, the slightly modified Alpha 3 house, and finally Act 4, where we fight a giant neighbor like in Beta 3 and defeating the thing and waking up from Acts 3 and 4 as a dream and the game ends. In the beginning of Act 3, Nicky was evicted from his apartment and returned to Raven Brooks. The neighbor's house was gone, but he's still traumatized from his childhood. He also gets stalked by the thing. Well guys, that's all for this video. If you guys want me to do a part 2, then like and subscribe. Bye.